Alright, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. This is a Ficus Philippinensis, I guess is how you say it. Some people say it's just a Benjamin and an unknown variety of Benjamin, whatever you want to call it. Right now it's just kind of a big mess that I got going here. I'm a big proponent of sometimes if you're unsure, if you don't have time to work a tree, as long as there's not wire on it, you can just kind of leave it be and come back and work on it another day. This may be actually one of the instances where perhaps I took that a little bit too far. And then as I kind of tried to set aside the time to work on it, I just realized that it was going to be a bigger and bigger project. It would take me a little bit longer to put it together. And so, it had to get put off to another day, And now here we are with the big mess. There may be a few things that I miss in the video, just even me getting this guy out from the ground outside and everything. I've already had to wash my hands twice just so I can handle the camera again and everything. So it may not be the easiest tree for me to be turning the camera on and off and getting different angles on and all that. We'll have to see how it goes. First, let's see if we can just give you a look at the other side here. There's a little bit of the tree out of the picture. Well, you guys won't really see much from that side. You'll see more as I start working on it and everything. Most of the root action happened to come off this way. In all honesty, I have this sitting on the ground, but on a tile. And I've had this tree for a little over 2 years, I think. It was about a year and a half ago. I noticed when I went to go pick it up, one of the roots had kind of came out. This one seemed to be one good strong root. And it kind of was like in a nice little pattern, almost like this one. It almost looked exactly like this one, which has now come out of the bottom of this one. But this one obviously came out of the top. So I just said, well, what happens, whatever was in here, I think it was a moringa tree that died off or something. I said, well, what would happen if I just set this there and let it go in let the roots go in there? And you can see the result of it. And then I had this, actually these are full-size tiles, the bigger tiles, not, small tiles by any means like for a bathroom, but big like house tiles, or floor tiles if you will. And I had this sitting on its own tile, and this one sitting on its own tile. And then I actually have like my big bald cypress in a tub kind of pushed up next to it. And I just really haven't, I've seen that some of, it's got other escape roots, which again, we'll get a closer look on when I get a chance to move it around a little bit. And I never really realized just how bad it was until I went to go do this project maybe like 6 months ago. And then I was just like, well, it's winter time, probably not the right time to do it. And then as spring came around, I was like, well, maybe when school's out. School's been out about a month now. And I just got to take the time to do it. So, I guess today's the day. My plan was, it's basically got 3 good strong branches. And I was hoping I could keep this one, get it wired down, be able to save it. This one too is not quite as strong as that other one, but save it as something, to help thicken up the bottom of the trunk. And then right now there's a leader here that goes a little bit too far, I think. Let's go ahead. Actually, while I've got it up here, I'm going to cut the leader off. And let's see. Right here is where the leader, or the main trunk, that's a weed. That might clear things up a little bit if I get weed out of there. My thought is this kind of took off this way, and that's the strongest upper branch. And since I'm doing all this work, I do want to downsize it quite a bit. And so I'm going to pop it off right here. And that's not even anywhere near. But I'm going to pop this guy off right at the pot. That's kind of part of what was holding the tree upright. Alright, and back to the tree. I haven't done anything to it since I cut the leader off to try to use for the graft. But now that I've got it separated from that terracotta pot was actually what was holding it kind of stable. I can't get it to stand up, so I might as well go ahead and address that. First, I did want to kind of show that as it was kind of growing tall, this thing kept blowing over, and I put a brick right here. So this root here actually grew around that brick and around this way. I guess maybe the first thing I can cut off is that guy. See the almost shape of the brick there where it grew around it. And get that off to the side there. And then it looks like most of these are actually coming right out of the center of this pot. So let's see. All right. These really are some cheap cutters that was sent to me. The only, I've had a couple of other product endorsement people try to send me things. I've turned them all down just because I thought it's all look like cheap stuff. I don't want to advertise any kind of cheap stuff. And these are definitely cheap cutters here. Can't even remember the company's name anymore. Started with a Z, I think. Still doesn't set right. Not flopping over quite as much here. So my idea for the day is, especially this branch here, I'd like to get wired down and save it along with this one. And then I do want to save this one too. One of the mistakes, I like my other, let's take a look at the other side of it, just see things a little bit better on that side, just because there's not that third branch coming at you. You'll be able to see a lot more as I do start working on it here. My other Philippinensis, I like it a lot, but the mistake I made on it was I didn't realize how apically strong it was, and my first thought, it was probably only like the maybe 5th or 6th tree I've ever even gotten in my journey, if you will, or whatever, is I open up the trunk, because it was, that was one of the things I read about is, you want to open up the trunk, you want to be able to see the trunk, pick a front, all that kind of business. And I did that, I think, a little bit too quickly and took off some of the lower branches, and then I got worried about losing taper. And I don't know, I feel like I'm going to try to do my best to kind of correct a few of those mistakes here. So, we'll just see how it goes. The first thing I am going to do, and I guess I can do that kind of while I got this angle right here, is I'm going to shorten this one up just a little bit. I'm going to take this one back to, say, another new leader on the branch, if you will. So just shorten it up to there, let that be the new leader on that branch. And then on this one here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back a little bit further, and I'm going to go back to here. And then I can use kind of like the length of that one to be the new leader of that branch. And get the wire on like that. And then think about trimming the top here some. I'm going to go ahead and get the wire on off camera. I do have the wire on there. Before I get anything bent or anything, I am going to go ahead and just prune it up a little bit more. First off, I do think I could shorten that up a little bit. My wire actually comes to that point right there anyhow. And then, as I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit, trying to look at what I'm going to do in the apex and whatnot, and I'm kind of losing some of my plan, if you will. But I do know I have to cut back a lot of the spindly stuff here, just a lot of the hedge growth I have done since this thing kind of took root in that pot and everything. I have done basically no pruning, just trying to let it bush itself out. And I can see it's caused me a couple problems in the apex, but once I get this opened up a little bit better, maybe we'll be able to see them. Kind of point them out and see what I'm going to do about them. Opens it up a little bit more. So right here is where I chopped off that leader to try to graft onto the root that was left in the terracotta pot, and I want this to be the new leader. But these two branches here, have just enough flexibility in them to where I might be able to get some movement out of it. And then that would leave the apex left up there. Now the other side you can kind of see it a little bit better. And that would be, you can see that the trunk line goes up here. It's much thicker going this way than it is these other two ways. But they are coming straight up like they want to be part of the apex. And I'd like to keep them as branches and keep just this as the apex. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is this one actually has a crossing branch coming into one of the branches off of the apex. And even if I do wire it and get some movement out of it, it'll be coming straight up. So I'll take that one out. And then since I am going to try to get these both down, if you will, I was going to think about taking one of those off, but maybe I'll leave both of those on. Now, as I try to kind of talk about what it is I'm planning on doing there, let me go ahead and just get these down and out of the way. I have very little experience with getting good movement in branches this thick. With this thick of wire, I did use 3.5 wire for this size of a branch here today. That's actually just happens to be the biggest that I have. And then if I get this one out of the way, it should actually even get us a better idea of what we're looking at there. I knew this one would be a little bit harder to... Man, I'd like to get at least a little bit of lateral movement in it too. I've seen other people with the same theory, and my theory is that, especially with ficus trees, I feel like, but I think it might be the case for all trees, and that is a branch this thick that had been continually pruned would be lignified, but because I let it go so long, it actually still does have a little flexibility in it. I may end up, I'd like for it to be down just a little bit more, but again, I do want it to look natural too. I'm just kind of worried about how they'll just kind of let the sun try to draw them up as they go. Kind of gives us a better look at what we're dealing with up here. If I get wire on those two, again, have the more defined apex there. All right, let's see if we can make some heads or tails out of this thing here. I figure after I get these two branches bent, I will go ahead and see. There'll be some unfortunate twigs coming off of them, I'm sure. It's going to be a trick here. I'm not going to worry too much about side to side movement on these. I just don't want them to keep growing up. And then if you watch my other videos with that other Philippinensis that I have, I even tried to do a wedge cut and cut it down, and it really just kind of looked awkward. So what I should have done on that tree, you see I didn't cut the wire out there, just simply thinking I might have to wrap it around the end when I'm done here. That should be the hardest one to bend, so this one should be alright. Maybe I will get a little more movement out of this one. This one has this other sub branch off there too. I think I'm going to leave that. When I noticed when I bent it down, it was going to go with it, so why not leave them both? Alright, and then up here, I would like to go ahead and let these cloud out here as, like I said, an apex. But it does seem as if this one's a little bit stronger than this one. so let's see if I take out that. All right, so let's see. About as cleaned up as I'm going to get it for today. It still won't stand up straight. Or I mean, in this pot anyway. I'm going to go ahead and repot it. I was a little up in the air whether I was going to or not, but I figure if I put it back out there, I'd have to find some kind of way to get it to stand upright. I mean, of course, I could lean it up against something and it would grow fine, but it has has where the huge taproot was trying to come out of the bottom here. And that's just going to continue trying to do that. And because these things get the adventurous roots, it would just spread out. I mean, I could put it up high on the cinder block to where it wouldn't really have anything to do that with. The other one actually for a little while had a grip on the cinder block I had it sitting on. But I figure I'll go ahead and do that. And just a little side note, I mean, one of the things that you hear about when you first start this journey is people talk about 1 insult per day. That does not really go for most tropicals, especially ficus. I mean, I could take this thing out of its pot here and tie it to a palm tree outside. And as long as I remember to spray some water on it here and there, it would survive. It wouldn't look very good, but it would survive. So I'm not too worried about doing all this work and, the chopping and the repotting it all in one day. Not a normal tree by any means here in the tropics. Alright, and before we get in here and see what we're going to find, I did also want to mention that I would like to get these in some soil too, rather than just letting them dry out with my original plan of leaving it in here. I figure those are the two biggest surface roots it's got showing. I'd like to get it kind of planted up in there and just hope that they kind of continue growing out. Anyhow, let's just see what we got here. Might be able to reuse that for something one day, maybe just a microcarpet cutting or something that I'm not too concerned about. Alright, so let's see. Nice and dense for sure. One of the things that I did with the camera off was pull out more of the weeds, and I didn't get the roots out on any of them. They're like in these roots here. I want to make sure I get a lot of this surface stuff off. And then I'm kind of hoping that just as I work my way down, that'll kind of help break up the rest of it underneath there. Alright, I had to step outside real quick, get my bigger root hook. I wasn't thinking I'd bare root it, but I think I am going to try to wash some of that dirt off there. I don't see the need to have all that black dirt left, especially since I'm going to go ahead and get it in something a little bit bigger and wider. So let's see what it looks like after that. Alright, and I kind of had to do a little bit of prep work there with the camera off, just to hustle up a little bit. I don't want this thing drying out too much. I did take and found my better set of pruners so I wouldn't pinch my fingers anymore. I got that off a little bit. And then I actually did, not sure if it was the one that was wrapped around the brick or the other one, but I cut that off. It was wrapped all the way around that way with no fine roots coming off of it. I left this one just simply because it's going in the right direction. I think I can cover it up with some substrate. And I finally settled in on a pot here. I kind of have it ready to go. A little wire to tie it in and everything. And because it's going to rest almost just right on the bottom of the pot there, because it's got plenty of room to go that way, and also just because of the growth habit of these things, I'm not too concerned about getting substrate under it. I should be able to go ahead and American chopstick that stuff in enough. And I'll wait till I get the substrate in there to cut that off. I was going to try to get it under that aerial root, but that aerial root's actually attached to that bigger root. If I lose that one, just because it gets pinched too much with the wire, it's not that big of a deal. Alright, and there we go. I'm a little undecided on whether or not I'm going to go ahead and publish this video now, or wait and see what happens when this thing starts leafing out a little bit more. The pot is an oval pot, and I don't really have the wingspan kind of lined up with the sides of the pot, but it'll be more along the lines of for the shape of the root ball that I have it in there. That's kind of what I was thinking as the front, but if you look at it from the straight on the oval way, it would look like that. I can always worry about that with any subsequent repots or anything. I know I will not put this on the ground, allow it to get any more escape roots or anything like that. I'll buy another one if I ever feel the need to, experiment with something like that again. Alright, and it has been just about 2 months. Actually, it's been about 2.5 months. That first part of the video was July 1st, and now here we are in the middle of September. I would have done this follow-up video a lot sooner, but I've been waiting to see what happened with that graft. And oddly enough, it seems as if the root part of the graft is still alive, but the foliage part did not take. It held on for a long time, but it just didn't make it. This branch has some dieback. I'd go ahead and cut that off now and hope maybe I'd get some back budding out of there, but it still has wire on there that's attached to this one. I think I overbent it a little bit, and once I got it kind of settled in there, there really wasn't that much foliage on that either, and you can see all the rest of the tree is recovered nicely. So to kind of go on with what my plan would be for this tree's future, if you look at my other one, I have realized that because they are very apically strong, when you cut continually back on the apex, that does allow the lower branches to kind of, not how else to say, but keep some life, no dieback, and just allows them to grow out quite a bit more. If you allow it to just kind of take over on the apex, then it'll just grow in the apex. And so I am cutting it back now, just with that idea of I want an extremely ramified apex that I can just kind of cut back like this, and then like next year or maybe even later on this winter, whenever I get a chance to take off this wire, when this wire starts biting in, go ahead and start getting some of these secondary branches down here wired up as well, and just have a nice really wide tree with plenty of movement in the bottom. And then of course, like I said, just probably have it envisioned just only being maybe a few inches taller than this, and just continually cutting that back and developing the lower part.